But going back to the beginning and what makes us truly special is that our core mission has always really been about helping workers first. And what that means is lift as many people up the socioeconomic ladder.
Welcome to the Dental Office Managers Community Podcast, where we talk about the issues that matter most and help us to become better leaders in our dental practice. Let's dive right in. Hey guys, it's Kyle, and welcome back to another episode of the Dental Office Managers Community Podcast. I want to ask you a question. Has this ever happened to you? Now, let me give you the example here. Your hygienist calls out sick. Your assistant is on vacation. The schedule is packed, and suddenly you're scrambling to find help. Does that sound familiar? Well, if you answered yes, and you most likely did, staffing is one of the hardest parts of running a dental practice. And today we're joined by Maria. Maria, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Kyle. Really excited to be here.
Yeah. So, Maria, you guys have built an amazing platform. The more I learn about it, the more I understand what you guys are doing in the space. One of the really special things that we're going to get into has to do with getting a new employee and actually being able to retain them from your platform. But before we jump into that, I want a little understanding of what makes Clipboard Health different.
Mhm. Absolutely. I'm happy to go into it. And I guess one of the things I feel like I hear a lot every time I have this conversation is we haven't really heard much about you guys. And so I want to explain that as well. But why we're sort of new and why I'm here to spread the word is because Clipboard has actually started out outside of dental, but we've now been here for 5 years. Going back to the beginning and what makes us truly special is that our core mission has always really been about helping workers first. And what that means is lift as many people up the socioeconomic ladder. That means more access to opportunity, whether it's more work or more flexible work. And at the same time, as we all know, there are a lot of employers who depend on those professionals to run their business day to day. And so, what we're trying to do is connect those two sides in a way that creates opportunity for workers while also solving real operational problems for businesses. We started out about 10 years ago. We were working with long term care facilities first. So think places like nursing homes, assisted living communities. Staffing shortages there have always been a huge issue. And in that world, if you're short staffed, the consequences are anything from regulatory fines to even being shut down. So while the impact may look a little different from dentistry at the surface, the underlying problem is the same. Staffing gaps create serious financial and operational risk. And so about 5 years ago, we saw that parallel and we decided to expand into dental, where we're now helping practices solve staffing, which is similar, one of the biggest challenges. You talk to a lot of practice owners, same as me, and it's the same story. Someone calls out, a hygienist goes on leave, or you trying to hire the right person versus any person, and suddenly you're canceling patients, the schedule falls apart.
Yeah.
And it's not just patient care, it's a big hit to production. And so our job is to give offices a reliable way to keep their chairs filled when they need coverage. And we're really good at what we do. We fill more than 90% of all shifts posted on our platform. And once somebody does commit to working a shift, we deliver. Our no-show late cancellation rates are less than 2%. It's about reliability. That's really, really important to us because it's our customers who are trusting us to protect their schedules. And then the last thing is really exciting, and I know we're going to get into it, but we do make it very easy for offices to hire people they meet through the platform. If you find a hygienist, if you find an assistant you like working with, hire them full time. We don't charge direct hire fees. So if it's a great match, we don't want to stand in the way of that relationship. No expensive placement fees or anything like that. But yeah, that's a little bit about us.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. You gave us a lot to think about, but I wanted to say this. Besides you guys working with us in the Facebook group and creating a special offer for our members, which we'll get into towards the end of this video, I wanted to bring it back to the model, the hiring model that you guys have, right? And I think it's very important, it's very unique because with most other companies, and I've seen many come and go in the last 24 years of being in dental, but the one thing that really stood out to me is that your business model is very different. And it's the hiring model specifically, because with most staffing agencies, if you bring someone into the practice and you later decide to hire them permanently, then
Hmm.
typically that agency charges a placement fee. But
Yeah.
Clipboard Health doesn't do that. Honestly, for me, that's a very big deal. And I'm sure for many other practices, they feel the same way because when you do get someone who's really good walking through that door, you want the ability to maybe offer them a permanent solution. Maybe you really like them. Maybe the doctor
Hmm.
loved them and the patients really enjoyed them. And so I feel that you shouldn't have to be, and I'm going to use the word penalized here because it does feel like a penalty of some sort when you're looking to find someone who's the right fit for your practice. So, just to be clear, if a practice meets someone through Clipboard Health and desires to hire them, there's absolutely no placement fee at all.
No placement fee, nothing. They come work a shift with you, make them a full-time offer, bring them on. You can let us know, we still won't charge you. There's no fees at all.
Love that. Love that. Okay. Clipboard Health has also put together a special offer for members of the dental office managers community. If your office signs up and starts posting shifts through Clipboard Health, you're going to receive $250 off your first invoice. And you're going to see that link here in this video at the bottom in the comments section. So if you guys are looking to hire someone, whether temporarily or maybe permanently at some point, and maybe you just want to vet them by having temporary shifts filled, definitely use Clipboard Health's link and take advantage of their special offer because they're here to help you guys out. Now, with that being said, Maria, do you ever see offices actually use Clipboard Health as a way to find team members, almost like a
Mhm.
working interview?
100%. And we actually do call it that. We call it a working interview because you invite somebody to talk, whether it's 30 minutes, an hour. Sometimes you can see they're a great fit, but it's still never the same experience as when they're actually working, when you see them interact with your patients, see how they are on the floor. And that's something that we tell our customers. Definitely, what we can help you if you have any temporary hiring needs, but please use it as a way to test somebody. You bring them on, they do a working interview for you. It's a lot more effective. Feel free to bring them on. No, 100%.
Great. One of those things that it's funny, actually, I'll share with you a little story. When I first started back in 2002, the first job that I found in a dental practice was through an ad that was in a local paper at the time. I don't know if they even make it anymore. And that ad was actually placed by a staffing agency. And the staffing agency, when I contacted them, they said, "Hey, we have this really good opportunity for you. You could work in a dental practice." And I was like, "Okay, sure. I just need a job. Sure, why not?" And so I started working there, and the practice liked me so much, but the thing was, they had acquired me through this agency, right? And so the office manager at the time was really trying to figure out ways to not have to pay the placement fee. It was interesting. And I understand that sometimes having the placement fee actually causes some issues, you know?
Just friction, right? It's
Yeah.
you want to build trust with your customers, and the last thing you want is for them to hate you for standing in the way of improving your business.
Yeah. So I love what you guys are doing, and kind of leads to my other question. From what you are seeing, specifically in the dental practices, which roles would you say are, I don't want to say the hardest to fill, but which
Mhm.
ones are they like are in most in high demand right now?
Oh, 100%. That would be hygienist. And
Hygienist.
I think the reason why is because what a lot of are realizing is that hygiene actually drives so much of your practice growth, whether it's just patient flow, but it's also dentist production. A lot of the time when you have somebody in that hygiene appointment is when you're able to identify a lot of the issues, whether it's a more complex operation, if it's a crown or filling, whatever it may be. And when they're there for the hygiene production, you're going to see it trickle down to further production down the line. And you're also seeing a shift towards like slightly shorter hygiene appointments as well. And so that means you want as much of that as possible. And at the same time, you're also seeing kind of a shift in the workforce where a lot of the hygienists and assistants as well, but a lot of the hygienists as well, like they want more flexibility in the way that they work, but hygiene schools are not necessarily increasing the size of the graduating classes. And so you're seeing an increase in demand, but the supply can't keep up. That's 100%, I'd say, hygienists.
Yeah, yeah, and I would agree with that from what I'm seeing as well in our group. I feel like there's a few posts a day or a week that someone is
Mhm.
looking for a hygienist. So thanks for sharing that. Now, let's get into a little bit about the platform and how it works. Maybe you could help walk us through what the process looks like for an office manager. Let's say I needed help tomorrow morning. What are my
Yeah.
first steps?
Please let us know. So, first step number one is sign up with us. Or if you're already on the platform, you actually have access to a dedicated account manager. So, you have a person that you can actually just pick up your phone and call them, and they'll take your needs and they'll get started on trying to fill those needs as soon as possible. Happens to be a need first thing Monday morning. We actually have a 24/7 customer support line available as well. So there's always somebody for you to talk to day or night. So that's step number one, or alternatively, log into your account and just post a shift. We make it very easy to do as well.
Okay.
What happened?
But
Yeah,
sorry, I just have a quick question. So you
absolutely.
said post the shift, and that really stood
hmm
out to me. So how quickly can offices realistically expect someone to accept the shift?
We fill shifts within minutes. I've had situations where I'm onboarding a new customer and they need somebody for the next day. I post a shift and then it's filled before the end of the conversation. It depends on the area, but most major cities were able to fill the shift within a couple of hours, most. If it's a newer area, we have a team of recruiters who'll get start working on sourcing additional professionals right away. Very used to doing that. Again, bigger area, minutes to mostly hours. If you're in a bit of a more rural area, we'll get on top of it, and within the day, we should be able to help you find somebody.
Okay. So I just want to point out, I asked that question, but I wanted to share a little bit about my experience. Now, I didn't bring this up
Of
right away
course,
because I want you to with our audience exactly how the platform works and what they can expect. But I do have firsthand experience on Clipboard Health. And so I thought it was important that I mention this. Our practice was in need of a hygienist, and the hygienist had informed us with short notice that she was going to take a vacation for 2 weeks. Of
as
course,
it happens,
yes. So what did we do? We started scrambling and trying to figure out we should call to get into the practice. And so the doctor actually came across your platform, and we hadn't spoke yet, even talked about working together in our group. But I can share that the doctor was very happy with the hygienist who showed up. They were very professional, and the patients actually really liked the hygienist. And it's funny, after the hygienist had did the 2 weeks, the doctor had said, is there any possibility that maybe we can get her back? So with that being said, we had a very good experience. And so I just wanted to share that and put that into this video. So some of our members here that are watching get an understanding like, hey, look, I'm not just promoting you guys, right? I've worked with you guys and I've seen firsthand. Very professional, showed up on time, and the patients really adapted well to the hygienist. So speaking of quality, how do you make sure that the professionals on your platform are qualified?
great question. And I know I've talked about reliability, making sure somebody's there, but quality is just as important because whoever's walking into your office, they're not just a body to fill a slot. They're representing your office. They're part of the team. From a patient's perspective, they don't know the difference if somebody's a temp or if somebody's here all the time. And so that's super, super important. The way that we really make sure that whoever we send you is a great professional is really our account managers team. And they work with offices, but they also have relationships with the professionals themselves. And that's part of their jobs is to actually build that relationship, nurture it, get to know them, figure out who's reliable, who works well in certain environments, and make sure that when we do send you somebody, that match makes sense. And I won't even mention vetting, licenses, background checks. That's table stakes, but super important and not something you can always do if you're bringing somebody on from a Facebook group, which is great. It's a really reliable way, but it's just a lot of extra work added on the office manager's plate. So that's really a big deal. And then we get feedback, ratings, reviews. We speak to the offices. We find out how was a professional. If a professional gets a lot of negative reviews, they're actually deactivated from the platform because it's not somebody that we want to represent your practice. It's not somebody that we want to represent Clipboard. Same thing on reliability. So we have a pretty stringent kind of quality control. And if you want to find a work opportunity through us, you have to maintain it. You have to be reliable. You have to do a good job. You're not just there for the day sitting on the floor. You're there doing your best work, putting the best foot forward.
Thanks for sharing that. In terms of maybe growth for practice, right? Do larger practices or DSOs use Clipboard Health differently than like smaller private practices?
Yeah, great question. We work with quite a few DSOs. I'd say the biggest difference is, first of all, you often have one person kind of manage the staffing and manage the platform across many different locations. They're not always aware of what goes on the floor any kind of particular day. And we'll do both. We'll work with the person who communicates the needs, but we'll still call the practice and we'll try to figure out what's going on. And similar, we'll ask the professional about any feedback that they have on the office. And sometimes we'll communicate with the DSO because they want to know what can they improve across their locations. Yeah, so that's one way. And then the other way is a lot of the larger DSOs, they have recruiting teams. So, when they want to hire full time, we'll often work with them as well. We'll figure out a way for them to access a pipeline of candidates, maybe for certain locations that just want to focus on full time hiring. And so, one thing we'll do is we'll actually filter candidates appropriately. We'll speak to every person who's interested in working in shifts and let them know, hey, this is a working interview. We only want to book you in if you are open to a part-time or a full-time position. Um, and so we'll be a bit more deliberate about who we send to a specific office, and we'll coordinate kind of with the different levels of stakeholders, depending on kind of what the goals for each individual office are or the DSO.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Okay. Okay. That's very good insight there. In our community, we have private practices, we have DSO practices, we have so many office managers from throughout the country of different various types of practices. So it's good to know that you guys also serve some of the bigger, larger groups out there. If you could give a piece of advice to a dental office manager that might be struggling right
Yeah.
now, what would it be?
Yeah. Oh, okay. One piece of advice is a lot of folks who may have never used a temp agency, they're scared to start because they're worried about the cost. And it's true, a temp can cost a bit more per hour than a normal team member. And that's true whether you go through an agency or whether you go through a Facebook group or to somebody that one of your team members know. It makes sense. And we still have to be conscious about the economics and charging what's fair, but when you take a step back and you look at the math, the real cost isn't really the hourly rate. Again, it's the lost production if you have to cancel patients. And I think that's not always super obvious and why staffing has become such a big topic in the last couple of years. You see the workforce changing, and some folks, the childcare is getting more expensive. They can't afford to take on a full-time job and commit to a consistent schedule. And so what I really want folks to focus on is, if you can fill that staffing gap, yes, maybe you're spending a couple $100 extra, but you're not losing production. And it's not just $1,500 in hygiene production that you'd be losing, but like I mentioned, you'd be losing the treatment that could have been diagnosed with those hygiene visits. It could easily be another $3,000 to $4,000 in dentist production. And then, how patients are, they want everything on demand. And so if you have to reschedule them, a lot of them will just find another practice and they go there. And that's customer retention and additional cost. So that's the most basic piece of advice is try to think about the growth for your practice versus kind of the daily cost of paying your temp maybe $10 more an hour.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a quote that I really like that I've heard so many times throughout life. I've heard it a lot in dental, but for some reason, I feel like not everyone sticks with it and actually uses it as a model in their business. And that is penny wise, pound foolish.
Yeah.
And the reason that really resonates so much is because exactly what you said. think about the production lost. Think about the possible treatment planning that could have took place. And in your case, it's not a placement fee, right? With your company, it's not a
That's right.
placement fee. And so usually the objection is there's a placement fee or it's just too much for us to afford hourly. And the reality is having someone there who continues to make sure your practice is running thoroughly for the day and still allowing the dentist to do their job, which is diagnosing and treatment planning, alone is worth, in my opinion, maybe a $5 rate per hour increase or something like that, just to
Mhm.
have that person there. Now, that's just my opinion, right? Everyone's entitled to their own, and we might even hear some on this video. But what I believe, and that's what I believe really helps grow practices, is when you continue to provide a service and you don't have an interruption in the business. Penny wise, pound foolish just doesn't really work. But I also think it's somewhat of a mindset thing that sometimes is difficult to change.
And it's changing. I think folks are starting to understand this and adopt that mindset a little bit more.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a process.
Yeah, yeah. So, look, Maria, some of the things I heard today from you that I want our listeners to grasp here is that Clipboard Health fills shifts quickly.
Yeah,
Clipboard Health offers vetted dental professionals, meaning they're not just giving you someone off the street. And the other one is there are no placement fees if a practice decides to hire someone from your platform. Does that all sound about right?
that's correct.
Okay, perfect. So here's what we're going to do, guys. We're going to wrap up this video here, but I do want to hear from you guys down in the comments. And really, I'm curious, okay? Share with me and Maria, what has been your biggest staffing challenge in this past year? We want to hear from you. We want to understand what are your pain points, what are your struggles, and don't forget that if you're looking for someone to put in your practice, whether it's someone needed today, tomorrow, the link is down below so that you can get $250 off your first invoice with Clipboard Health. Maria, thank you so much for being here. We thank you for the support, and we look forward to talking to you again soon.
Thank you so much, Kyle. Really enjoyed the conversation and looking forward to speaking with you soon.
All right, guys, I will see you on the next episode of the Dental Office Managers Community Podcast. Take care.